Hey guys, I'm Dimension Jump and today I'll be reviewing Pokémon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which was released on the 3DS and was released back in 2014. Now, these games are a remake of Generation 3 of Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire, and they basically, the story is that you go around the Hoenn region basically becoming the champion and defeating gym leaders and basically getting their gym badges. And yeah, and basically you catch Pokemon, you level them up, they evolve, and you do various other stuff, like beating the team of the game you're playing, and also catching the legendary Pokemon. Now, these games are possibly one of my favourites, it's probably in the top 3 of my favourite games in the Pokemon series. And for good reason, because these games are quite interesting, because the entirety of the Hoenn region is there are parts of it that was on land and parts of it that's in water, and I think that's a really interesting way to play these particular parts of the games, because if you look at other games like Pokemon X and Y, Pokemon Black and White, the original Pokemon games, they mainly are on land and you rarely go on water. The only times that you might go on water is probably trying to get to the Pokemon League. That might be about it, but with these games there's a lot of amount of water that you can traverse, and I think that's a really interesting way to play the game, because you can basically just go to, because there's one part of the game, I think it's when you have to try and get to one of the gyms in the game and you have to go across the water, and I think that's a really interesting way of getting to a particular gym, because it's not just you just riding your bike to a specific route and then just going up and then you're at the city. You actually have to use a Pokemon that knows Surf and then go to the specific gym. Now, like every other Pokemon remake, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire take something from the kind of based off from graphically wise. So if you look at Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, those games not only has the same style as Generation 4, but they also had some of the Pokemon that were introduced in that generation, like Togekiss, Mamoswine, Gliscor. But with this game, or these pair of games, not only does these games take its graphics from Pokemon X and Y, but also the Mega Evolutions from the same game as well. And for Mega Evolutions, for people who might not know about it, is that Mega Evolution is basically when a bond between Pokemon and trainer basically just are at their best or something, and then they allow them to evolve. But if you need the way they would do that is basically getting a specific stone for a specific Pokemon, and then you can use a specific bracelet to make them evolve. And I've got to say, some of the new evolutions that are in this game are really, really cool. So, for instance, you've got the starter Mega Evolutions. So that's Mega Sceptile, Mega Blaziken, and Mega Marshtomp. Now, out of all of these Mega Evolutions, I think that probably Mega Sceptile is probably the best one, because it's got this massive sort of tree thing on its tail, and I do like all the multicolours the Sceptile uses on its tail. And then I would say probably Blaziken next, and then Marshtomp's Mega Evolutions, because with Mega Blaziken it's decent, it looks cool, but with Mega Marshtomp it looks I don't know, it's probably the weakest starter Mega Evolution in my opinion, Mega Marshtomp. And now it's time for some gameplay. Now, the game, both Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, look, graphically wise, very similar to Pokemon X and Y. I think that's a good thing, because if you look at the graphics in the original games, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, they kind of look like, how games were developed at the time. So they kind of looked a bit pixely. But with the remakes, I feel like they're good. I think the graphics here are greatly improved, And just like other games in the series, you can basically just run about and catch Pokemon. Now, one of the good things about this is that you can basically see the animations of the different Pokemon. But the only one of the things that that's kind of like, how should I say this, that could have been used throughout the game is how you use the 3D, because the 3D right now is in 3D. It's only used in battles, so you can't really use it in any other part of the game except for the battles when you're using the 3D. So that's kind of annoying. Now, the animations are okay for the console that they're playing on, and if you compare this to the newer games, Pokemon Sword and Shield, they're basically the same in animations, and it would have been nice to see how much further the development of how Pokemon attacked in this game to how Pokemon would attack in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And I quite like it how in some parts of the game, depending on which one you play, you can see members of either Team Magma or Team Aqua. And one of the things that's quite interesting about them is that depending on which one you play, they have similar dialogue. So they might be talking about a particular part of a legendary, and then they talk to other people about the same legendary, and also the thing, and also when they do release the legendaries, both amounts of dialogue are different for when they challenge not when they challenge, or when they release a specific legendary. And so this is the trainer battle. So it's kind of like, trainer battles are kind of, the norm in Pokemon games. So depending on which fighter or which challenger you're fighting against, they will have different Pokemon. So this trainer, I believe, if I remember correctly, has both a Plusle and a Minun, if I remember correctly. And depending on which, and also when the more trainers you face along the journey, the more higher the levels that trainer's Pokemon will be, and they might have some more Pokemon. So, for instance, if you're fighting in the beginning of the game, some trainers might have 1 or 2 Pokemon, but then later on in the game, a Pokemon trainer might have 4 Pokemon, and they might be level 45, whereas this trainer's Pokemon is at around level 15. And I think that's a really good way of showing you how far you can go and become the very best, because you can see basically how much you've grown throughout the region, and see how you've been able to calm through every obstacle, that sort of stuff. And I like it how in this game you can re-challenge the same trainers again to get more experience or something like that, and you can just grind away, that sort of stuff, and it's really interesting. And so yeah, the other Pokemon is Minun from this Pokemon trainer, and yeah, I think that each battle is quite interesting because basically you have to figure out which Pokemon's typing works well, which one doesn't work well, which Pokemon you might need for a specific gym. So for instance, the first gym is a rock type, so you'll obviously need either a water or grass type or a fighting type, which luckily all 3 Pokemon starters are, because for Grovyle, it's obvious he's or Trico, who's the grass type starter, it's obvious because he's a grass type. For Marsh Stomp and its evolutionary line, it's a water ground type. But with Torchic's line, it's it begins as a fire type, but then it becomes a fire fighting type. So if I had to suggest, if you were playing and using Torchic and you were at the first gym, I would suggest probably getting a grass type in the woods area. That's quite near the first city, so you can be able to get a type advantage over the gym leader. So that's been it for the gameplay, and now it's time to go back to the review. So depending on which game you play, you'll be battling one of two teams. If you're playing Omega Ruby, you'll be fighting Team Magma. If you're playing Alpha Sapphire, you'll be battling against Team Aqua. Now, I do like these two teams. I think this is an interesting way to bring in teams into the Pokemon series, because they have similar goals, but thereby they require different Pokemon. So for Team Magma, they require the power of Groudon, so that they can do something with the land and make it some sort of barren wasteland or something. While with Team Aqua, they require the fish one, the whale one. I forgot what it's called. I forgot what the whale one was called. Kyogre, so that they can make the entire land sort of like underwater or something. So these two teams are quite interesting because they have similar plans, but they require different Pokemon or legendary Pokemon to get their plans activated. And in these games, Kyogre and Groudon have these things called primal forms, which is like Mega Evolution, but slightly different, because in these games they have both Kyogre and Groudon have these things called orbs. So for Groudon, if you give him his red orb, he'll become Primal Groudon. If you give Kyogre his blue orb, he'll become Primal Kyogre. And I think these forms are quite interesting and quite looking better than their normal forms, because they look quite intimidating, and they look a lot better than their normal forms. And once you've beaten the main game, you can do this thing called the Delta episode, which is basically you have the help of Rayquaza to basically destroy this meteorite that's heading towards the Earth. But then you later find out that the meteorite is actually Deoxys, and I think that's a really cool twist and a really good extra bit of story, because you can basically just catch two legendary Pokemon in a span of a few minutes or so, when you do face both Rayquaza and Deoxys. And yeah, so for my final overall final grade of these two games is that I think these are an interesting pair of games. I feel like that the whole Team Aqua, Team Magma dynamic should be brought into future Pokemon games, because that's a really interesting way to bring in two teams, because in the game you will see both Team Aqua and Team Magma fighting each other from time to time, and you can also when you go into their base, they look similar but also different at the same time, because both their bases are at the same location. But for Team Magma in Omega Ruby, their base is all fiery and they've got like a lava in certain places. Whereas with Team Magma's base, even though it's at the same location of where Team Magma's base is, they've got all of the water stuff. So they've got like water flowing in certain places. You've got like their banners hanging in certain places as well. And I think that dynamic should be brought into like Generation 9 or something. And yeah, I feel like I think these games are really cool and interesting, and I do really like a lot of the new Mega Evolutions that these two games bring to the table, and I kind of wish that there are new Mega Evolutions for us to use and to have a go with. So yeah. So that's been my review for Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.